criticism that his show no longer reflected a changing society. Beyond those three faces, the list of black artists who ever sat across from Carson was nearly empty. Black jazz and R&B singers like Nina Simone, Marvin Gaye, and Aretha Franklin had repeatedly expressed their wish to be invited, but the door of The Tonight Show remained firmly shut. An internal NBC document cited by Variety revealed that Carson personally crossed Nina Simone's name off the guest list in 1965, scribbling only a brief note to Politico. It was a stark reflection of how Carson curated a screen that was clean, whitewashed, and free of anything that might remind viewers of racial injustice. The rare moments when black artists were allowed on were little more than tactics for Carson to win public trust. A television critic from the New York Times once wrote, "Every time Carson shook hands with a black performer on air, audiences sighed in relief, as if America had become fair. But the truth was, he welcomed them as strangers, then locked the door behind them." The coolest part was that Carson's guest chair could decide the fate of an entire career. Countless white artists from Steve Martin to Joan Rivers walked out of The Tonight Show and into legend. Meanwhile, a whole generation of black talent was left on the sidelines, erased simply because Carson wanted to preserve a safe space for his conservative white viewers. Looking back, we see a chilling paradox. The man hailed as America's best friend was at the same time the gatekeeper who shut diversity out. Johnny Carson was not only the king of late night, he was the one who held the power to raise a star, to glory or cast them forever into the shadows. And he used that power to enforce a Hollywood that was brutally segregated. One guest chair could change a life. Yet, in Johnny Carson's hands, it became a locked door for people of color. And once the late-night king revealed that truth, the public was even more stunned when they turned to John Wayne, a man who not only discriminated in silence, but openly glorified white supremacy as if it were America's ultimate truth. 2. John Wayne, believing white supremacy was the only truth. Galloping horses across the desert, the stern commander in war films, or the upright man who always defended justice on screen. He was nicknamed the Duke. Placed by Time magazine among the 100 most influential cultural icons of the 20th century. Yet, behind the wide-brimmed hat and steel gaze, Wayne concealed an extreme conviction. He saw white supremacy, not merely as an opinion, but as truth itself. In 1971, during a marathon interview with Playboy, Wayne bluntly declared, "I believe in white superiority until the blacks are educated to a point of responsibility." Those words were printed verbatim across millions of copies broadcast on television, leaving the public stunned. There was no slip of the tongue or ambiguity. It was a manifesto delivered with confidence, as if he were acting out another role. Only this time the script was a prejudice ingrained in his blood. For decades, Wayne tied himself to films that depicted Native Americans as savages, Mexicans as thieves, and nearly erased black people from the screen altogether. This was no accident. In many off-record conversations documented by journalists like Morris Zoloton, revealed his blatant disdain for these communities. He argued that Hollywood doesn't need too many strange faces, and that audiences came to theaters to see the stories of white people. That belief became a formula repeated in dozens of his so-called classics. Wayne did not stop at skin color. He went further, justifying the blood-soaked acts of history. When asked about white settlers taking land from Native Americans, he coldly replied, "It was just survival. The natives were selfish for keeping it all to themselves." Those words, printed boldly in Playboy, later led historians like Gary Wills to call Wayne the man who redefined American history in its most brutal form. In the same interview, Wayne openly opposed women's liberation movements and mocked films with gay characters. He dismissed them as sick lifestyles and insisted he didn't want such figures on Hollywood screens. For the LGBTQ+ community, hearing this from a megastar of Wayne's stature was nothing less than a public verdict reinforcing prejudices that had lingered for decades. What made it more chilling was that Wayne did not only speak, he acted. In 1960, when director Stanley Kramer considered inviting Paul Robeson, a famous black performer and civil rights activist, to join a project, Wayne reportedly lobbied behind the scenes to block it. The reason, later revealed in an interview, was that Wayne did not want the leftists and those radical blacks to gain footing in Hollywood. As a result, Robeson was cast aside. It was only one example among many showing Wayne's willingness to use his power to stifle change. Even as the civil rights movement erupted across America in the 1960s, Wayne's image continued to dominate the big screen. He still won the Oscar for True Grit. In 1969, still had statues erected in his honor, still hailed as America's hero. Until the end of his life in 1979, he never retracted his racist or homophobic words. On the contrary, Wayne regularly appeared at conservative political events, openly opposing every push for equality reform. The bitter irony is that while thousands of people of color shed blood for equal rights, his name was engraved on the International Airport of Orange County. Wayne became undeniable proof of a paradox. Hollywood was willing to paint a man who openly worshipped white supremacy as a national hero, regardless of everything he said and did. But Wayne was only the beginning. For right after him, another face once hailed as the most gentlemanly star of the silver screen would reveal a darker side that shook Hollywood to its core. Clark Gable. 3. Clark Gable, the Gone with the Wind gentleman addicted to dropping the N-word. Clark Gable had long been seen as the embodiment of elegance during Hollywood's golden age. His image, in a dark suit with sleek hair and a proud demeanor, made millions of viewers crown him the king of the silver screen. Yet behind that polished exterior lay a darker truth that was hard to accept. Gable had the habit of using the N-word as part of his everyday language. The N-word is one of the most degrading terms in American history toward black people. It was not merely a vulgar insult, but a symbol of an entire system of oppression tied to slavery and racial segregation. That a star of Gable's stature would use the word so casually not only reflected his personal beliefs, but also exposed the cruelty Hollywood was willing to overlook at the time. Actress Hattie McDaniel, who made history as the first black performer to win an Oscar for her role as the Mammy in Gone with the Wind, was living proof of Gable's contradictions. In public, he posed as her defender, objecting when she was barred from attending the ceremony at the Ambassador Theater and even praising her talent, but in private conversations, McDaniel admitted that Gable repeatedly called her the N-word, doing so naturally and indifferently as if it were the most normal thing. It was not only McDaniel who faced his disdain. Lesser-known memoirs from crew members revealed that Gable often mocked the black extras on set. He would imitate their voices and gestures, turning them into the butt of jokes. During one shoot in Culver City in 1939, he uttered a contemptuous remark, so sharp that the entire room fell silent. Yet no one dared challenge the most powerful star in Hollywood at that time. The Los Angeles Times of that era also recorded this paradox. In official events, Gable was described as a fair-minded man, even opposing segregated bathrooms on set. Yet at private Beverly Hills parties, he would tell jokes,